For me, I think motherhood has really given me permission to put it down. Like
Amazing.
I'll be with my kid and I'll just put my phone and my computer in a different room. And I'm like, I'm with my kids right now.
Yeah.
Like for the next 3 hours, no one can bother me. Nothing's that important. And I wasn't able to do that before I had kids. Like I felt this need to constantly respond to people, to constantly be, available to other people. And now I feel like whatever it is, if I answer in 3 hours, it'll be fine.
Seen is not just a podcast. It is a movement dedicated to amplifying the voices, experiences, and stories of women shaping the film and photography industries. We're going to dive deep into the soul work that these women undertake every day to pursue their dreams, passions, and to breathe life into their creativity. And all while fostering and nurturing a thriving community among women in our field. I'm Nalani Hernandez Melo, a creative photographer, director, and curator based in Los Angeles, and I am deeply honored to share this space with you as your host and creator of Seen, where women behind the lens take center stage. Today, I'm excited to welcome Selina Ringel, a Mexican-American award-winning actress, comedian, writer, and producer whose work has been captivating audiences around the world. Her latest film, You, Me, and Her, starring Ritesh Rajan and Sydney Park, has garnered critical acclaim. The festival has amassed 14 awards, including the Grand Jury Award for the Best Film, Best Picture at the Mexican-American Film Festival. It will be in theaters very soon. Selina's talent extends beyond acting, as seen in her feature, Single Mother by Choice, a hybrid docu-narrative chronicling her real-time pregnancy during the pandemic, currently streaming on HBO Max. She recently wrapped filming for her stand-up comedy special, Two Moms, One Mic, alongside Kaela Crawford. Her earlier work, The Best People, which she wrote and produced, was distributed by Samuel Goldwyn. A graduate of the prestigious AFI Conservatory with an MFA in producing, Selina continues to break new ground in film, comedy, and beyond. I am honored to have her with me today to dive into her incredible journey and her achievements.
Thank you.
Hola,
Thank you for
Selina.
having me. Hola, muchas gracias.
Bienvenida.
Gracias.
It's amazing to have a fellow Mexicana on this show. So I always like to start with, how's the mind, body, and spirit today?
Good. Yeah, especially after the grounding.
Oh, yes, the spirit.
Yes, the spirit, yes.
Amazing. Thank you again for being here. It is an amazing opportunity for me. We've never actually met before, so this is exciting to meet a woman doing and sharing her stories in our industry.
Thank you.
I wanted to get started with, can you paint me a picture? Take me to that exact moment where you knew you wanted to pursue film.
Wow. That's a good question. It's hard. I always wanted to be an actor. Actually, the movie, so this is so funny, Selena, which is, my name is Selina with an I, but Selena was a movie that I watched every day for a year.
Wow.
Which was very hard for my parents.
Yeah.
So they're like, please put another movie on. But I was obsessed with that movie. And I think that's when I knew I wanted to be an actress. I was probably like 9 years old or 8 years old.
What was it about that film?
I don't know. I think I probably didn't realize it at the time. But looking back, it's probably because she was this woman who was breaking ground and doing things that no one had done before. And she was so empowered in how she was going about what she wanted to do in the world. And she kind of had, even though it wasn't always easy, but she had like a support system to make it happen. So I don't think I was processing all of that at like 8 or 9, but I feel like looking back, that was probably had something to do with it, because it was inspiring in that way, you know?
And I mean, you mentioned you watched it almost every day for a year, so that almost became a ritual.
Yes,
so
I knew every line.
Yeah,
I knew every
amazing.
song. And also, obviously, I'm bilingual.
Yes.
And that's one of the things in the movies. She's learning how to speak Spanish, even though she's Mexican. And so there's the whole element of language and of culture and kind of what it means to be both American and Mexican, which is something that's, you know, also personal to me. Again, I don't think I was digesting all of this, but I think I just resonated with it, you know?
Well, let's begin there. Your origin story. Tell me a little bit about your upbringing and where, you know, you mentioned to me Guadalajara.
Yeah.
And then how you landed here in Los Angeles.
Yeah. So my dad is Mexican.
Okay.
From Mexico City. And my mom is American.
Okay.
So I was actually born here. When I turned 2, we went to Guadalajara.
Amazing.
And then I was raised in Guadalajara. And then I came back here when I was 18.
Amazing.
To study film.
Okay.
So, so culturally, I feel very Mexican.
Yes.
But I don't look Mexican, so that's very confusing to people.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting thing to kind of navigate. But I think it's also an interesting time because I think we're kind of coming to terms with the fact that things can look a lot of different ways.
Our Latinidad.
Yeah, because there's so much in our Latinidad, and it looks
Yes.
so different for different people. And there's, you know, what it means culturally is so different for the
Absolutely.
people who grew up there and the people who grew up here, and the level of Spanish. There's so much,
Yeah.
and I think it's about kind of accepting all of it instead of trying to be like, oh, this is the version that's actually Latin and this is not. I think that's where, you know, we can get stuck in a bad pattern. In my opinion.
Definitely. Can you tell me a little bit about maybe were there some experiences where so we're speaking about a film industry, you know, and the entertainment. So, and the timing of where we're in a place now where representation is so important.
Yeah.
And we're hearing conversations where people saying like, actually one of our friends, our mutual friends is a white cis male, and he's like, they don't want me right now.
Yeah.
You know? And when you started and, you know, identifying as Mexicana, was there moments where you felt like you had to play a card or play a certain to get ahead, or because things were
I think like if I'm really honest, like I think I didn't get a lot of Mexicana roles because I think people were scared to cast me as La Mexicana, which I understand. Like I get it, you know what I'm saying? But so what I actually ended up doing was writing characters for myself and casting myself and creating like a multicultural woman who is more like me, because I exist too. And I just felt like if I wasn't going to be represented through someone else's eyes, I could be represented through my own, because I know that I exist.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So.
And I think that's part of the movement we're in, or like we're telling our own stories. We don't see ourselves out there. Like we're going to take up that space, and we're going to, like you said, write our own stories.
Yeah.
Who is better to write that story than yourself? You know,
Exactly.
you lived it and experienced it. And so tell me a little bit more. You came to study acting first, or?
No, so I came actually, so it was interesting. In Guadalajara, I was doing some acting and modeling.
Okay.
And it was funny because it's actually reversed. So there, because I was very light-skinned, I was booking a lot of things that was for the more American look. So they were trying to shoot things that looked more American there, and I was booking a lot. Okay, so then, and then my parents were like, you know, you can't not go to school. That was kind of like their hard rule. Was like, you can only do this in your free time. And so then my agent at the time was like, well, that's not gonna work because you're booking a bunch of stuff, and so I can't keep bringing you in if you can't actually do the job.
True.
And so then somehow I kind of like got it in my head that I was like, okay, well, I'm going to go to LA. I'm going to try to do acting. And I was doing LMU at the same time for undergrad.
Yeah.
But I had this like very like La La Land moment very early on, probably like in the first year that I was here, where I sat down and I kind of felt like, oh my God, I went to this casting room. There were like all these people. They had been doing it for way longer than me. They seemed like, it just seemed so hard.
Yeah.
Like I just sat
so
there.
hard to reach.
Yeah.
Far to reach.
And it was like, I remember I was in the car for like an hour, and then I like had to park for like 30 minutes. And then I like waited for 30 minutes. And then I was like, I got 2 minutes in the room, and I was like, what is this? Like, you know, it was like, and so then I had this like heart to heart with my parents, and they were like, well, you know, you should just be a producer, because you'll have a lot more, say, which is funny, by the way. We'll talk about that later. Yeah. It's not always the case. But anyway, but in my head, I was like, okay, well, maybe that's a more empowered position, because I felt very disempowered. Yeah. Granted, that was my own stuff.
Absolutely.
But I just like literally took myself out of the equation. I was like, all right, well, I guess I won't be an actress. This is too hard.
Okay.
But I'm good with people. I'm very organized. Like I'm good with story.
Yeah.
I'll be a producer.
Okay.
And then that's kind of like the track that I took for a long time. And then what was interesting, so as I was doing that, I was casting a lot of my own projects, because I've always been really interested in talent.
Okay.
So I've always been kind of keeping an eye on who I think is talented. And like if I saw someone at a play, I'd get their phone number later. Like I can't help myself. I'm always kind of connecting the dots.
It's curating personalities and energies.
Yes, exactly. And so what ended up happening was, before I knew it, I was like getting paid as a casting director. And I've like casted over 100 projects, which, by the way, isn't even a part of my career that I really talk about.
Okay.
Because it's like not really what I'm like pursuing. It's just like, it was a weird thing that happened to me.
But it's an energetic thing.
It was but what was really interesting about it was that as I was producing and casting all these things, I had this moment, like probably like 5-7 years down the line, where I kind of hit a wall and realized like I was basically doing a lot of stuff that was fulfilling someone's vision.
Yes.
But I had not
Let's
yet.
talk about that.
I hadn't yet fulfilled mine.
Yeah.
You know, and I had this like epiphany where I was like, wait a minute. I know how to get the money. I know how to bring the people together. I know how to cast the project.
Yeah.
I know what I think is good and what I don't think is good. That doesn't mean that I'm perfect, but I know what I like. So why don't I write the movie and I cast myself? And like, granted, like not an easy road.
Of course not.
But and I also, you know, I have a partner who's, my husband is very supportive, and he was like, you should 100% do that. He was like, you're, you know, just as powerful as the next person and just as talented as the next person. And there's no reason why you shouldn't put yourself at the forefront of what you want to do. And so I did. And it kind of changed everything in terms of like where my career was going. But it was...
Can we explore that for a moment?
Yeah,
I'm really
please.
curious about... So there's, right now in your story, there's been 2 moments where... using your word, you met a wall, right?
Yeah.
So the first time, your La La Land moment of the auditions, and what I'm gathering is that that specific moment, being so young and being in a new space and environment, you know, your parents are who you look to, and they share their guidance. And you even named it that you took yourself out and you kind of changed path. And then the moment where you're casting and you're creating all these projects, but you realize that you're doing it for someone else's growth and not yourself. Do you feel like in these moments, what was the impact of those? Like, what was really guiding those decisions? When I hear you tell those stories, I think of my experience of being the daughter of an immigrant, of a daughter of a Mexicana, where like they want you to survive, they want you to hustle and work hard, to like find the route that will get you there. And it's not a natural thing for us to say we're going to pursue the arts. You know, it's not. In those two walls, what were the big factors in maybe not taking the walls down, but processing that?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with risk, right? Like, how much risk are you willing to take? And I think, I think coming from, you know, a Latin background, it's like we're not always jumping at risk because it's been harder in some ways. And so there's a lot more like, just play it safe. Like, don't do something crazy. Like, you know what I'm saying? But I also think that the more you learn to do what you're doing and the more confidence you have in what you're doing, the more you can give yourself permission to take up the space and be like, and here's the thing. That doesn't mean that I'm always going to do it right.
Of course not.
I can fail.
I think that's a misconception.
Yeah. And I think that actually, to me, like, failure is key to success. Like, if you don't think you're going to fail, then you're wrong. Like, you will fail.
Yeah.
But like, just like put that in the journey. Like, just know that that's like that is how you will get there, because you have to. Yeah. Because there's so much learning to be had from that. But if you don't take the risk and you don't take up the space and you don't put yourself in the position you want to put yourself in, you'll never know. Yeah. And at the end of the day, it's like, I always say this, it's like, it's your life, right? So it's not just about like, there's your livelihood, but there's also your life, right? Like, what is it when you look back? What did you actually do with your time? How much did you enjoy what you were doing with your time? And I think so much of what's hard is that we're struggling also to survive and to pay our bills and to all this stuff. And you know, there's gotta be enough support in that space.
Absolutely.
To be able to have a headspace for something else. But if you can find the time for the headspace to do what you want to be doing, then really explore who you are and what you want to be doing, because ultimately all of that is building out what your memories are going to be and what your life is going to be about and what you cared to share with the world and how you cared to show up.
It's like a ripple effect. It all, if you start, well, it ties into mindset, as you mentioned, you know, and think of the trickle, you know, it trickles down. If we change how we're thinking of things or perspectives, and then those walls do start to come down.
Well, so what's interesting about that, talk about mind perspective, is I'm actually writing a book.
Amazing.
Called Be the Train.
Okay.
And it's all about perspective, but it's also about how to make your first feature.
Okay.
So it's a little bit of like a guidebook on how to make your first feature independently, but at the same time with a lot of like mindset, actionable ideologies behind it. But I think like the biggest thing to me in my life, what I've learned is that you can't keep waiting for the train to show up so that you can jump on. Like, you have to actually be the train. And then people will jump onto what you're doing.
Absolutely.
And if you don't have the passion and the energy to just like go.
I resonate with this so much.
Yay! Oh, I'm so glad.
I'm like, somatically, I'm like,
yes. Oh, I'm so glad, because I mean, I really do believe that it's like so much in our life is energetic.
Yes.
And if you're walking through life passionately just doing, people will jump on board for what you're doing.
Yeah. It's frequency. They just feel it. And I mean, I mentioned earlier when we were just chit-chatting, like this was that, when sometimes the things don't flow. Yeah. And sometimes that negative, it's not even a negative experience of things not flowing. It's just shifting and aligning and becoming your own train, and it just goes. Yeah. I'm so excited for this book. I can't wait to hear more about this.
Yes.
Jumping back into your story. So you kind of, I want to know, was there a specific incident or moment that happened that brought you this awareness of like, I'm doing so much for others, why not invest that back into my projects?
Well, there were a couple of little things. Like, for one, so as a casting director, I was constantly reading with the actors who were coming in. And I was getting a lot of emails from the actors, which was really nice, because it's like, they didn't have to do that, but they would literally be like, Selina, you're such a good reader. Have you ever considered being an actress? Or like, Selina, thank you so much for your read. Your read helped me do a really good job. Or like stuff like that, where I was like, oh, well, that's really nice. You know what I mean? So that was kind of like happening in the background. And then I think what happened was, I had a project that I was producing kind of at the same time that this was all happening. And it was a project where I felt like I didn't feel valued. And I was realizing like, I'm not having fun anymore doing this. Like, I'm feeling like I'm just constantly doing stuff for other people. And granted, like I was also, it's indie producing. So it's not just producing. It's like producing and doing crafty and picking up the table. And you know what I'm saying? Like I'm a builder, and I'm a grabber, and I'm a caller, and it's all the stuff. And so which is really fun when you're in a really great collaboration and you have a great team. But when you're doing it and you're kind of being taken for granted and people aren't really valuing your time, it starts to feel heavy.
Of course.
Or it did for me. And I kind of realized in that moment, like I needed to do more to remember why I love this. And actually what I did first, which was interesting, was I took a stand-up comedy class and an improv class at the Groundlings. Just because I was like, I need to play again. Like I just need to remember what it's like to play and not feel like I'm taking everything so seriously and feeling so bad about everything that wasn't quite working the way, you know, I had envisioned in my head, and also everything takes way longer than you think. And oh my God, and I'm ambitious. So now it's like, why have I not won Sundance? I'm already 25. I'm saying like, what is wrong with me? Anyway, so
biological clock ticking.
Exactly. I'm like going through all of this. So anyway, so what was really incredible is I took these 2 classes, and what came out of it was, so in my stand-up class, I ended up getting booked. There was a booker when I did my final show, and I ended up getting booked to do a show at the Comedy Store.
Amazing.
Which was incredible. And like also super, I mean, not
was comedy something you were already do?
No.
Okay.
No, like this is like the first time I had ever done stand-up. And then in my Groundlings class, I did my Groundlings show at the end of the course. And a friend of mine was in the audience, and at the time she was working for the Duplass brothers. And she was like, I'm doing this like series for them. She was like, you should audition. And this, by the way, it had been 11 years at this point since I had done an audition. And I was like, what? Wow. I was like, what do you even mean? Like, I wasn't even, you know what I'm saying? Like, I was just doing this to like reignite some sort of like fire.
But even I hear like reignite, but also realigning almost like cosmically.
Well,
like, woo.
Yeah. And so what was so incredible was I did the audition and I booked it.
Wow.
Which is insane considering I had now cast over like 100 things. So I know what the chances are of booking it. It's really...
Logic brain was trying to...
it's like a really small chance. You know what I'm saying? And that was my first audition in 11 years. So I was kind of like, I had this moment where I was like, all right,
I hear you.
I'll do it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'll change
the ancestors.
That's what you're saying. Like, it was like really weird. But I was also like, I need to embrace, if this is what I'm kind of receiving.
Absolutely. That's what I'm hearing in this.
Yeah, so I did. And it's been a journey.
You have your 2 projects that are now with HBO Max, correct?
Well, I just finished my 3rd feature. So my last feature's on HBO Max.
Perfect.
My first feature's on Amazon. And available worldwide. And then I also did a comedy special, a stand-up comedy special, and that's also out on Amazon. But the feature I just finished is going to be out in theaters.
Amazing.
But is not out for streaming yet.
Yeah. Let's you booked your first project, and then this journey. Yeah. You know, your projects bring a lot of vulnerability, but with humor.
Thank you.
And I want to explore that a little bit with you.
Thank you.
What is it about telling your story that is important for you?
Yeah. Well, I think that's a big part of it, right? Is like everything I've done is so me that you can't cast someone else.
Strategy.
It's gotta be me. No, but it is all the things that I have written and done are so personal, and that doesn't mean they're all 100% true.
No, of course.
You know, it's like I take something that's true and then I really work on it to make it the best story it can be, but it's born from a true place. And, you know, even my comedy special, it's a half-hour comedy special on what it's like to be a new mom during the pandemic. And that was my experience. So not everyone, you know, is going to relate to every joke, but I think most moms will relate to most of it.
Of course.
And then a lot of people in the pandemic will relate to, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
But
there's entry points, you know.
and kind of what I've realized is that if I'm not this authentically myself, it's like, and I don't know, to me, I feel like what for what I'm trying to do, it's almost like it needs to be so honest that that's why it works, because it's too hard.
Yeah.
Like what we're doing is too hard.
Yeah.
And so when I'm on something like this and I'm having a conversation, or I'm, you know, talking on, you know, Good Morning America, I need to be able to answer why it was important for me. And so it has to be really personal to me. And I want to, and there's a lot of things that I want to talk about, but it's funny because they change as I'm aging, what I want to say and what I'm noticing and what's interesting. And I think like comedy to me has a lot to do with being uncomfortable and where things are hard.
Yes.
And so that's kind of like where the comedy comes from.
Absolutely.
In all of my stuff. But it's not like funny, like, ha ha, like that.
No.
It's more like, ha, you know?
Awkward, clenching.
Like it's more like that kind of
tense. But let's talk about vulnerability, because you know, I having studied theater when I was younger, and when you're doing your classical training, they introduce you to all the different paths you can go: comedy, you know, drama, and body theater, physical theater. Comedy for me was always very intimidating because it's such a what's the risk factor, leaps of faith, in crazy amounts of trust if you're doing work with others, but also that fluidity of allowing yourself to be vulnerable to you know, for the sense of like allow yourself to be naked, you know, reveal yourself, and then ping pong it, you know. You, as I mentioned, like vulnerability with your projects. What have been some practices or strategies or personal rituals that you do to kind of go into that vulnerable space with yourself and in your creative process?
It's interesting because I feel like it kind of happens the other way around. Like I feel like I'm not thinking so much about how to be vulnerable. I'm more like thinking about what's happening or what I'm struggling with or what's hard. And then I feel like I have to say something about it. And then I get inspired and I write something about that. And then I end up being more vulnerable than I wanted to be.
And then that awkward laugh.
and then I have to go to therapy with my husband because he's directing all this stuff. So we're like really in it.
Yeah.
And then it's funny because I've actually been naked in most of my films, but not because, it's relevant to the vulnerability of the film. So it's like, I mean, like my last movie that's on HBO Max, I'm like literally pregnant naked, which is like, I actually remember my my husband's grandma was like a very conservative South African lady, and she was like, "Why would you ever do that?" She was like, "No one wants to see a naked pregnant woman's body." And I was like, get it, Grandma, but I feel like some people do because we're all
absolutely
all the people who are going through it are going through it, you know? And so I felt like it was actually important to like to show that because I think we see so much like pregnancy and it is like so like fake pregnancy. It looks like someone just ate a peanut. You know what I'm saying? And like pregnancy is bigger than that and it's messier than that and it's not glamorous all the time. And I wanted to show that.
And it's not quick.
And it's not quick. And that's and there were so many things where, and I remember like as an actor with that movie specifically, like I would watch scenes and my actor self was like cringing so hard because it was like, ugh, I look so unattractive in all of these scenes. But then I would separate and my producer self would be like, but it's so good. You gotta leave it in there. You know what I mean?
This inner dialogue.
What it's like. So
could we take a couple steps back about your husband? You know, he directs all these projects. And again, collaboration and even joking about therapy, but actually part of it is that that's a true practice. You know, you've already made children together.
Yeah.
Now you're making creative works together.
Yeah.
So you're in it, as you said. What has that journey been like for you and him?
Yeah.
Walk us through that.
Well, we actually started working together before we had kids.
Okay.
So what's actually been really interesting is also the adjustment with kids, because it changes things a lot. But yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it's hard. Yeah. It's very hard.
Yes.
I love him a lot, and we're very different. Like he has incredible ideas. He's a total visionary. He's very in his head. Yeah. He needs a lot of space.
Okay.
He likes quiet time. I don't know how to give him that. And I'm like a super people person. Okay. I probably couldn't talk more. You know what I'm saying? Like I have like a million, I'm like a doer. Okay. So like he'll be like talking about an idea. He'll be like, what if we did? And I'm like, I already sent 17 emails. Like 3 just came in. It seems like, and he's like, I hadn't finished my idea. Like, please stop doing it. You know? And so we've found a way to like meet in the middle, which is I think what's helped our work a lot, because like, you know, I've learned that it's really important to actually slow down sometimes and to really take in what the idea is before I start reaching out. And there's things that I needed to learn. And then there's things he needed to learn, because if it was up to him, we would always not start.
We'd be in ideation the whole time.
Because he is much more of a perfectionist than I am. And he has, you know, so we have just different parts of ourselves that we really have to kind of work through. And you know, what's amazing about it is like we win Best Picture and we go and we pick that up together. Like that's incredible. Like some of the most like beautiful moments of my career have been like right by his side. Absolutely. Like literally like we're holding hands, we're picking something up. We both worked on it so hard. Yeah. On the other hand, when things aren't going well, that's really tough.
It's gotta go home with.
Yeah.
Gotta go home.
Well, and it's because, you know, it's not like, oh, well, my husband's a lawyer and he's doing well and I had a hard day. It's like we both had a hard day. Yes. And if a deal doesn't come through, it affects both of us.
The whole household.
The whole household. Yeah. That's all. You know, it's like, so
we're all going in there.
We're all going in. Like it's tough. That's really tough. And so just like almost like learning to give ourselves permission to be like, today's your bad day, tomorrow's my bad day. You know what I mean? Because like someone's got to be in a good mood for the kids. Yes. Like someone's got to figure out all the stuff around the house. Yeah. Like, you know, we can't both fall apart. And I'm not saying we're both falling apart all the time, but they're just moments that are really tough. Yeah. And there's disappointment in this business. So we know. And then there's also a lot of excitement. And so, yeah, it's a really interesting thing to navigate. I think most people would not be able to, it takes a very particular partnership, I think, to be able to do what we're doing. But more than that, I think it's about how willing you are to work through it with the partner. And like when I say we do therapy, I'm not joking at all.
No, I know.
That is no joke. Yeah. But I think that, you know, I don't have any shame in saying that. Yeah. Like if I wasn't doing therapy, it's because I wouldn't be caring to actually repair and figure it out and try to work through it because it's tough. But then at the same time, we also get to share a lot of beautiful things and have a lot of amazing memories together. Absolutely. But also, it also takes a lot more organizing. So like, for example, I need to have a family member or a nanny or like my support system looks very different because if we're on set, we're both on set. Do you see what I mean? And that's also, that's a whole world of its own.
Absolutely.
So that's been very different to navigate with kids.
Yeah, and I just to clarify, like I'm into more like in the jest of saying therapy because I definitely an advocate, especially with the work that I would mention I do with my mom. Like she's a therapist, and so advocating for safe space for therapy. Yeah. As a place to share, but also an amazing place to bring people with you to work through these tough times. And I think when your partner is also your main collaborator, communication is key.
Oh my God.
So is there, for anyone else who's working with someone, and maybe some of them it is their spouse, but maybe just a best friend or something.
Yeah.
Do you have like 2 secret, maybe not secret, but just recommendations of things to apply?
Yeah. Well, one of the things I would say is actually very helpful to us when we're not seeing the same thing.
Yeah.
Which is because that's, I think, a big part of it with collaboration is you can just have 2 different opinions.
Absolutely.
So I think there's 2 different things that I would say. One is giving a little bit of space. So like, I think sometimes what happens is if you're both coming from very different perspectives, you just kind of like escalate, and you kind of try to like double down on why you're right. Okay. But it's not about being right.
Yeah.
It's about what's the best thing for the project. And so sometimes I think giving it space and being like, let's not make this decision today.
Yeah.
Let's make this decision tomorrow. You think about what I'm saying. I'll think about what you're saying, and we'll talk about it later.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is we do this thing called mirroring sometimes. I don't know if you've heard of it.
I've heard of this.
But so mirroring is super powerful because one person's not allowed to talk.
Yes.
But they have to just kind of repeat everything you're saying. And they have to repeat it in the way where they get curious about where you're coming from.
Curiosity and exploration.
And so that's really key when you're like, that's kind of like when you're really hitting a wall and you're not understanding each other anymore, because that can happen sometimes.
And another level of mirroring too, and something I learned from my mother, mirroring the body language, what they're doing. So it also helps you, that expression of like being in their shoes, but also the individual who is sharing, if your partner is mirroring your body language, you can also see like, oh, is that how I put my hands when I'm expressing this? Yeah. And
definitely.
It clears up like, oh, maybe that's why they think I'm being defensive because my hands are like this, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that's a beautiful,
like, great idea. You know what I mean? It's like, did you think that was a good idea? Yeah.
Exactly.
Totally.
Give me respect. But yes, what is there anything else?
So, I mean, I think those 2 are really key.
And I'm curious, because you work together, but you're also a spouse, how does that feed into like now we're parenting, now the house life, you know how?
Well, you know what's interesting is that we're both very obsessed with our job.
Okay.
Which is good and bad.
Yeah.
So strangely, I actually think having kids has really helped us open our world.
Okay.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because now we get to have conversations about how interesting and cute and funny our kids are being.
Yeah.
Or not.
Yeah.
But, you know, I mean, we're very lucky and we have really wonderful kids. And so I feel like it's like one of the things we actually really work on is like we go to dinner and we're like, this is a work-free dinner. And that's really hard when you have 2 people who are obsessed with their job, who are working on the same thing, to just not talk about the work stuff.
And when you have little ones who just need mom and dad.
And so I think it's like, but separate from the little ones, we also need to be connected with each other.
Absolutely.
And so then it's like, how do we create space for a different conversation?
Yeah.
And I think that kids has actually been really wonderful for us in terms of creating like a different environment, a different space, a different conversation where it's not constantly coming back to this like obsessive, you know what I mean?
What are your notes on today's scene? You know?
Exactly.
I'd be like, what do you think about that plant, you know?
Well, and for me, I think it's been harder for him, to be honest, to put it down.
Yeah.
For me, I think motherhood has really given me permission to put it down. Like I'll be with my kid and I'll just put my phone on my computer in a different room. And I'm like, I'm with my kids right now.
Yeah.
Like for the next 3 hours, no one can bother me. Nothing's that important. And I wasn't able to do that before I had kids. Like I felt this need to constantly respond to people, to constantly be, you know, available to other people. And now I feel like whatever it is, if I answer in 3 hours, it'll be fine.
Amazing.
You know?
Yeah.
I hope so.
I love the way you phrase that, like motherhood, almost this change in your life and also your body and energy of just really tapping into the feminine side is giving you permission. You know, you gave yourself permission. And I think that's a beautiful thing that a lot of women, even in our industry, like give ourselves permissions to take these roles that are normally not given to us because of the fact that we are women. Or also, I think, and maybe if you have some thoughts on this, what was your shift in the industry being received now that you are a woman? I've worked with women. I've been on set with women on female sets that, you know, friends are thinking about having kids, but the first thing they think about, like, how it's going to disrupt this whole career.
Yeah.
Or I've heard stories of women not being hired again because they had a child, or, you know, just these little things, right?
Well, so a couple things. First of all, I was really strategic about my pregnancy, because I remember speaking to my husband and being like, I really want to have a kid. So what do we do? Because I'm probably not going to get cast in anything while I'm pregnant. And it was actually his idea. He was like, well, what if we shot something that was about you being pregnant? I was like, great. Let's do that. So the whole last movie was literally about my pregnancy. So we filmed once a month throughout my pregnancy, and that was like very intentional, which, by the way, I also had a miscarriage while we were filming that, which was awful. And like, I had to process that, and then I had to like pick myself back up, and then I got pregnant again. Then it was a global pandemic. So then I had to rewrite the whole script, include the pandemic. I mean, it was crazy making.
What kept you, you know, moving through all these?
I think I just feel like I've put in so much, I can't give up. I think about that all the time. I'm like, why am I still here? No, I just feel like it's like I just put in too much. I can't give up.
Absolutely.
And it's so interesting because that idea has actually, you know, I was just about to sign a bad deal for my third movie.
Okay.
Because we're in a very bad time right now with the industry, and it's been very hard in terms of, you know, buyers, and all this stuff has been strange. And so anyway, we had this, long story short is I had, again, like this moment where I was like, you know what, I worked too hard. I believed too much in what I did, and I'm not willing to give up. And I was like, no, I think this movie deserves better. And I didn't do it. And then something else happened, which I can't talk about, but that was so much better for what this movie needs to be seen and for how this movie is going to come out in the world. And had I done the other thing that felt like giving up, this wouldn't have been able to happen.
Of course.
And those moments are really hard because sometimes you just want to make the deal and move on.
Yes.
And you work so hard and you're tired.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, let's just be done with this one. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? But I feel like for me, there's just been too much of me put into it that I can't like know that I just let it, you know what I mean?
Yeah, let it drop, and when you're sharing this, what I hear is intuition. Like you followed your intuition. Yeah. But also, again, taking that risk, taking that trust in yourself and your decision, and be like, but that in the end it aligned. And you know, in this conversation with you, it has just been such an honor to hear someone really leaning into their intuition and their self. Like, you're betting on yourself so much in your journey, and that's absolutely amazing. I gotta give you your flowers for that. Like, you're always betting on yourself. And I, in my journey of just like, the pandemic took my career completely different. You know, I had just turned 30. I had my dream job. I was running an art department and like hiring celebrity photographers and videographers for a magazine that was a startup. And my best friend and I, like, we had our dream jobs. We were, you know, staying in West Hollywood, this whole thing. And then pandemic happens, magazine folds, everything just starts crumbling. Yeah. I go through a separation, divorce, and like I have a little one, all these things.
Oh my God. And that must be really hard, by the way.
It was a lot. It was a lot of, you know, like you said, with your film, you're following your gut and your intuition to go where you need to go for your career or for yourself, really. Yeah. But also finding those moments to pick yourself back up and carry forth. So it's amazing. And I think, you know, the intention for this podcast too is to hear someone's story, because sometimes hearing someone's story could be the spark you need to know that you can, or, you know, inspired by your book, that you can be your own train.
Yeah.
Not wait for someone, you know.
Yeah. Thank you.
How do you feel like now being a mother and looking back on everything you've accomplished? How do you feel with yourself, like your inner self, like your inner little child? Is there anything you're telling her?
Well, it's interesting because, you know, I think one of the biggest things I've struggled with is that nothing's good enough. But what I'm learning being a mom is to talk to that inner child because she would be so impressed with everything I've done. She wouldn't even believe all the things I've been able to accomplish.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's heartbreaking to think about that because it's like, I put so much pressure on myself.
Yeah.
And no one's putting that, you know, it's me. It's coming from me. And I feel like one of the things that motherhood has really allowed me to see is like how valuable you are just for being. Like I see my 2 kids, my daughter's 9 months old, my son is 4. Now I'm gonna cry.
Oh,
But
I have tissues.
but they're just like perfect.
Yeah.
Like they're, and they didn't have to do anything. They didn't have to prove anything to like in their energetic just essence be like so beautiful and perfect to me.
Yes.
And when they make a mistake or when they do something that they shouldn't do, I give them so much permission to be sad or to be mad or to feel like they failed and to pick themselves back up. And I'm not mean to them about it. Do you know what I'm saying? But then I can be so mean to myself.
Yes.
And so I'm like really learning, and this is very recent, to be like forgiving with myself and really embrace and enjoy and be present with what is.
Yes.
Instead of focusing on what's not and what didn't and what hasn't. And, you know, because it's exhausting. It's exhausting to live that way.
Absolutely.
So it's a journey.
No, I think actually just last night, my daughter had this picture of herself when she was in TK, and she had it in her room. Last night I saw it, and I always loved that little photo of her and her little stance, her little smile. And as I briefly mentioned earlier, we went through a lot.
Yeah.
And then the pandemic and I think when we were going through the separation and the pandemic, and she was around 2 or 3, so they're formative years.
Yeah.
And we were living in the desert, moving her to LA, back with my family. So a lot has happened in her formative years, and her now, you know, this will be her inner child.
Yeah.
That last night I saw that photo and I took it and put it in my bedroom, because part of the work or thing I wanted to do now is that I'm talking to my little self, but I also want to talk to that little girl of forgiveness, and like asking for forgiveness for like, you went through so much, this had nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
And now she's at an age, she's about to turn 8, where she has her opinions and thoughts, and she can communicate now about like, why aren't you and dad together anymore? Like, or how she feels about it.
Yeah.
So that photo, just seeing it and I'm a believer of like, you know, speaking these things out loud, but talking to that little one, because I see her in that photo and what you just described, so perfect, beautiful. She did nothing. She just arrived.
Yeah.
And she, in that photo, encapsulates that for me, and giving myself permission to recognize and hold myself accountable, but start her inner child work for her, but like as her mother, and be like, I'm gonna nurture that little one in the way we were going through so much. And now with her at 8, I really bring her into my world, into my life of my this production and life. And on set yesterday, she was helping me clean up the studio. Just because it's important for me to show her who I am fully.
I agree.
Not just as mama.
100%.
You know, like this is what because she sees what brings mama to life, and it's just been this beautiful journey of I'm also obsessed with work. So motherhood taught me like I cannot.
Yeah.
I have to find balance.
Yeah.
So I see you.
Yeah.
I recognize and I honor your journey.
Thank you.
And
you too.
And it's just like
and your daughter is
beautiful.
I mean, yeah. I think that the way you're talking about her with so much love is the love she feels every day, and we're all doing our best.
Yes.
And things aren't always going to work the way we want, but it can actually be really powerful.
Yes.
And, I think it's all just about being present and loved, which,
definitely
beautiful to hear you talk about it like that.
And it's just, I think that even feeds into our creativity.
Yeah.
To lead.
100%.
Yeah.
Oh, it feeds into my creativity so much, actually. They inspire me a lot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
She's been asking me to, I've been teaching her for the last couple of years how to shoot. I shoot on film, and she takes pictures now, and it's just amazing to like play and see that exploration. But again, like it just feeds your creativity of like, what is your perspective?
Yeah.
And play. She has definitely taught me to play again.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. And
same.
open
and
portals.
Also turn on and off.
Absolutely.
I didn't know how to turn off.
Yeah.
And I think it was causing me a lot of burnout.
Yes.
And I think that now having kids, and granted, I'm more tired.
Yeah.
I'm more tired than ever.
More busy.
But at the same time, though, it's like when I'm fully present with them, there's like a part of my brain that I get to shut off, which is actually really refreshing.
Yes.
Because it like never turned off before, because I have like this never ending list of things to do,
Absolutely.
And I've been very conscious about doing that. It's not always easy.
Yes.
But I feel like it's been really, I'm very grateful for it.
Thank you. Selina, thank you so much for coming today. As we get ready to close, are there any finishing thoughts or remarks you'd like to share?
First of all, thank you guys so much for having me. This was such a beautiful conversation. Yeah. And thank you for opening your heart and your vulnerability. I could feel your vulnerability in your eyes when you were talking to me. And I think these conversations are really important.
Yes.
And, seeing women open up about what their experience is and how they navigate things.
Yeah.
And I really do believe, this isn't just about marketing my book, but I really do believe, like, be the train. Like, whatever it is that you need to do, you need to just start doing it.
Yes.
And if you're passionate enough about what you're doing, you'll evoke that passion in other people, and other people will want to be a part of what you're doing. Mm-hmm. And so I would say that's my one kind of piece of advice.
Beautiful.
And it's not easy. And that's okay.
Yeah.
No one said it was going to be easy.
And if
don't
they
do
did,
it because
they're
it's
lying.
easy.
They're lying to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I look forward to staying connected and continuing these conversations with you and cheering you on. And I can't wait for your film to be in theaters. So excited.
Yay, thank you. Yeah, you too. Thank you so much.